Welcome back. Okay, last week I was out for my run and it was day one of my microcycle. So my legs were pretty fresh and I was feeling fabulous. The pace was easy, the feeling was good. My pace was coming up naturally, my heart rate was coming up with the pace. And so I had a question that I'm sure many of us do, and it's have my run zones moved? I mean, am I should I be running harder or faster when um, I'm doing my endurance work? When I started, it was the opposite question, which is one that you have, which is how fast is too fast. But now that I got a bit of fitness coming through, what I'm trying to do is optimize the pace, target the pace. So I want to explain to you what I did. It's a two-step process. The first thing you're going to need is you're going to need some reliable pace. And for that, I used a run sensor. I think it's North Pole Engineering that makes it. And I Velcroed it to my treadmill and it turns my dumb treadmill into a smart treadmill. It transmits pace to my phone and I connect via Zwift. But typically what I would do is I would go down to the track. But here in Boulder, we're having a pretty good, decent winter, and there was a foot of snow and ice last week, and it wasn't very convenient to go to the track. You could also use GPS or a foot pod, and I like to test on a flat route. I don't like to test through the hills. I'll let the computer do grade adjusted pace and that. But when I'm looking at things, I just want to get a feel for what my steady state is on the flat. So the first thing I did was a submax test. And the important thing to remember with your submax test is right in here. And it is start easy. Like I started walking. It's 9 minutes a K pace. And I started really easy and a very long warm up, a gradual warm up. So you'll see at the beginning when I'm using these really slow step paces, 9 minute K pace, 8 minute K pace, 7 minute K pace, 6 minute K pace, starts to feel like a jog. I'm just using 5 minute steps. And as I'm doing that, you can also see my lactate starting to come down and my heart rate starting to come up a little bit. But this is a very, very easy pace. And I could have even done I do a Swedish active readiness test is what I call it, where it's a submax, really easy warm up on the bike. I could almost have done that to kind of get myself going. But I wanted to make this kind of like get up in the morning, do a easy run and just make it progressive. And just to see where my lactate was going to tick up. And what I found was it looks like if you watch, it's coming down as the pace comes up. And then at 5 minute, the step between 5 minute K pace and 4:45 K pace is where I saw a clear uptick. And the feeling changed a little bit there. My breathing did not change very much. And then 4 minutes afterwards, I did a lactate sample and it dropped down to 1.1. I asked my buddy Alan Cousins, is that feasible? Like maybe the 2.0 was contaminated and got a little high. And he said he thought the gap, that kind of drop was feasible. Now for my endurance running, I had been using a cap of 130 beats. It's not a target, but if I got up to 130, I could feel a shift in my breathing and I would back off, kind of keep it in the 120s. And those breath markers are what you can use with your own training. You're going to feel a shift as you're moving away from that steady kind of effort and you're moving into a moderately hard or even an easy tempo effort. So adjust it for your own heart rates. So from this, I had an estimate of my aerobic threshold, which is this 5 minute K pace. This is the fastest I can go at baseline without my lactate popping up. It's what I call aerobic threshold, and that's where I target my endurance training. So then what I want to do is, okay, but that was only for 10 minutes. And I want to do a longer block of work at that pace. And I want to watch what happens to my heart rate, my breathing, my feeling, and also my lactate. So all the different metrics. And what I did was I warmed up 20 minutes. And the 20 minutes was just a real gradual build, just hitting plus, every 2 or 3 minutes or so, and just slowly bringing myself up to aerobic threshold, to that 5-minute K pace, and then sampled lactate, and it was 1.6. So it was actually higher than what I got when I was doing that pace in the prior workout. Now, the pace in the prior workout was after an hour. And if you saw my Bike Zones video, you'll see that my lactate will drop when I'm holding these steady efforts and my body's warming up. Maybe it's the uptake of the lactate is getting quicker, as especially in that second hour. Sometimes it feels like that when I'm on the bike. So don't really know why. I just pay attention to what's going on. But that was a pretty big increase, a 0.3 millimole increase from the warm-up. So it's like, okay, well, maybe this pace turns out to be a little too quick, or maybe my warm-up wasn't long enough. And if you are a fast start athlete in your training, that's really something you should think about adjusting. Give your body a chance to warm up to reduce the stress of that early part of your endurance workout. So I'm sitting there doing my 40 minutes, and these are lactate samples every 10 minutes. And it has a similar kind of profile to last time, in that the lactate starts moving down and then it's stable. And then what I did was I did a 10-minute step at 440 K pace. And I was figuring that was just a little bit quicker than the last step of the workout I did the day before. And maybe that would be enough to get a pop in my lactate, get my lactate over 2. The result was a little surprising for me. It didn't really move much. Don't know why for that. But my question wasn't, the feeling changed though. It definitely felt faster. So I don't feel like I have a green light to start running a whole lot quicker. Now, what I want to do is I want to build my stamina at that 5-minute K pace, or even a little slower if the feeling starts to move away from me and it starts to feel a bit harder. I'd like to build that up to the ability to hold that for 90 minutes as a start point and see. The other thing I noticed, and if you look, you can see my max heart rate for the 40 minutes at aerobic threshold was 126, and then my max heart rate at 440 K pace was 134. Now, if you're setting heart rate caps, something that I would recommend is take that kind of max from that longer steady state, add 5 to it, and consider that your ceiling. So for my endurance running, that means I want to stay under 130 and just accept the pace. And if I'm doing something where it's tempo a little bit quicker, that cap's going to move to 140 for me right now. I haven't been doing much of that. Ultimately, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work all the way up my lactate curve and get myself over second lactate threshold. And that's going to allow me to plot my paces, and I'll get a much better idea of what that tempo, that threshold minus pace target is. And then I can go out, I can do a block at that, watch what happens to my heart rate, see how it feels, see how my breathing is, and I can kind of make a call from there. Now, you're probably not going to be able to see it too well in the video, and I blew it up afterwards, but what you can see here is very stable kind of heart rate profile in that aerobic threshold block that I did, that 40-minute block. And that's what you're going to be looking for in your own training, that stability of heart rate, stability of breathing, stability of feeling. It'll be a stable effort. With that 440 K pace, I didn't get the stability. What we can see is over that 10 minutes, the heart rate is going up pretty much the whole time. It doesn't stabilize. Now, if I had continued for another 10 minutes, another 20 minutes, I would expect it to stabilize somewhere in the 140 to 145 range, but I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to stress my body that time. But if you were looking for that type of pace, you would need to do a longer effort to see where it stabilizes, where the breathing stabilizes, where the heart rate stabilizes, and that'll give you a good guide for that feeling. And that threshold minus effort is, you can look at my breath markers video, but it's going to be, you're going to be able to hear your breathing, but you're not panting. If you start panting, you got to back off. It's not that fast. It's what I used to call, what we all used to call max aerobic pace when we were doing our MAF tests back in the day, those Phil Maffetone tests. Anyhow, I hope this helps. And if you have any questions, you can hit me up in the comments. Remember to warm up.